Hello, RonnRetrobro here, as well as BXL, and we're going to be talking about the speculation of some of the competitive uses of mega-altaria.
Yep.
And we thought we'd do it by just looking at Altaria here on Showdown, its base stats, and exactly how it can possibly be utilized with stats we think it will get that will actually make it relevant to the today's metagame.
It's gonna be so powerful.
So what I'm looking at and thinking here is we're looking at 75, 70, 90, 70, 105, and 80. Altaria is normally known as a pretty well defensive Pokemon. And the reason I say defensive Pokemon, though its special defense is obviously higher than its physical defense, is its physical defense isn't all that bad considering its NU, and it also gets Cotton Guard, which triples it just off of single use. So it's definitely good on both defenses. However, as we already heard, mega-altaria is going to be Dragon Fairy,
which is awesome.
Being Dragon Fairy, I'm pretty sure they're going to make it an offensive build for its mega form, based on what we've already seen from those two typings. Not to say that there aren't defensive dragons or defensive fairies, because there obviously are, but my point is there aren't a lot of them, and they're usually more on the offensive side. At the same time, from what I've seen from Altaria's move pool, it just looks like the possibility of being more offensive will happen. But either way, we are going to give a speculation to where both possibilities may happen, as far as Mega still staying defensive like standard Altaria, or maybe even being offensive. So let's start with what may happen with the offensive build. So looking at his move pool, it has a lot of decent physical attacks. The ones I have on here are just ones that I think will be decent coverage in general. So it gets Dragon Claw, which is obviously going to be stab. It gets Dragon Dance, which can boost its attack and speed. Earthquake works well for Steel, which dragons actually have issues with, as well as Fairy. It works for electric types, and it works for taking down fire and poison types. And since fairies are weak to poison and steel, that covers them with no problem. So if you use it at the right time, forcing someone to have to switch in with one of those types on you, and you Dragon Dance, you have them. They're dead. Plain and simple. At the same time, Steel Wing has 90 accuracy, so it probably won't miss as much. And if you're Dragon Danced up, considering the Mega Form I'm predicting will have more attack, you'll more likely OHKO that particular fairy. And you have a 10% chance of it raising your defense as well, which is pretty decent utility. So now we talked about some of the offensive move pool. Let's talk about the stats here and what I think may work offensively for mega-altaria. So from what I researched, I've noticed that if you look at all the megas that exist right now, no mega gets more than 56 points and a singular stat. So though they all get 100 points that get spread across stats on the board, no mega Pokemon gets more than 56 points into a single stat. So that being said, I made my numbers pretty even, and I feel that if Altaria got 50 additional points, making its base attack 120, you could do some really decent damage at that. And at the same time, you give 50 points to the speed, and now you have an offensive build. You can do that, and now that you did that, it hits harder, it moves a lot faster, and its defenses are still decent because you didn't have to change anything with them. You just used your 100 points and 2 stats. 50 attack, 50 speed, which doesn't break the rule of going over plus 56 and still utilizes it very well.
That's true.
Figure at a base 120 attack, being a Dragon Dancer with stab dragon moves, that's dangerous. Extremely dangerous. So now, let's look at the possibility of let's say it being a special attacker. So let's go ahead and switch through the moves. Go ahead, let me know what you were thinking about that.
Yeah, I actually had a build on that. I deleted it since I thought Retro was doing that, but I think I remember it. I think I remember it. Let's have a 55 boost in special attack, making it, I think, 130 or 140, I'm not sure. Could you see that because you have the showdown open?
If you do 55 in special attack, that will be 80, 90, 100, 110, 120, 125 base special attack.
5. And then you would have then you would have like 15 in every single stat except for HP and attack. So I was actually thinking about making it a bulky but yet fast special attacker. So maybe even a mixed attacker with Con Guard and Dual Stab.
Now, that you brought up mixed attacker, which I'm very glad you did, this actually comes to my next speculation. It actually segues in perfectly, so I'm glad you actually said that. And my next speculation is that Altaria is going to be a dumbed down Tyranitar. Now, what I mean by dumbed down is, I'm not saying it's going to be terrible, because I don't think it's going to be terrible by any means, but what I mean is, because of the way its stats currently are, and the move pool currently is, Altaria can be anything it wants to be. It has the right decent amount of moves, and it has the stats to where, if Mega is really going to boost its offense and speed, which according to Korokoro scans they were saying they're going to give a tremendous boost to anyhow, then it has the potential to be a mixed attacker. And you guys already know that regular Altaria is already a great defensive wall, so we really don't even have to explain too much why that works, but we still will anyway. So let's go ahead and look at the capabilities of it being a mixed attacker, since we're still talking about offense. So we'll look at Draco Meteor. Since we have Body Slam, we won't run Moonblast in this particular case. So let's see. Actually, no. See, yeah, that's what I was thinking too. Run Dragon Dance instead of Moonblast, and then we can run a special move that actually has utility. Like, you know what I mean?
No, it's gonna be so powerful.
Because you can still run Ice Beam, you can run Flamethrower. There's so many other moves here that you can run, especially if it's going to be Mixed Attacker. So if it's going to be Mixed Attacker, we can go ahead and do... Let's see.
You could run D-Dance.
Well, if you're going to run this, you're probably going to want coverage over the fire type still. So
actually, I was thinking about running Return. You could always run Earthquake.
We could do Earthquake, but if we're going to run Earthquake, then we would have to take something else out. Like, Draco Meat.
Like a usual T-Tar, T-Tar spread. Like the D-Dance T-Tar would be, which is actually a set called Tyrannoboa, which was used in 3rd Gen. It gets D-Dance, Earthquake, then a special move, either Flamethrower or either Flamethrower or something else. And then you could run Return. With the Pixelate ability, it becomes a super strong physical fairy type move, and the only physical fairy type move we have right now is Play Rough, which Altaria doesn't get.
Okay, so let's say we went Draco Meteor, Dragon Dance, Flamethrower, and Body Slam. Reason being is so that the Flamethrower covers steel types, and then if we just come across a fire type, though Earthquake is good, a stab Draco Meteor is gonna kill anyway. In most cases, you know what I mean? So, though Earthquake would be good, it's not necessarily needed for a fire type if we're carrying Draco Meteor. But Flamethrower for steel types, I feel is pretty important. So see, even if you ran Mix Attacker, in this case being a Mega, you probably could run Mix Attacker this way. And what we're also looking at here is, again, if you just boost its attack and speed, you don't have to drop any of the other stats the way they are, which makes it decent for mixed attacking. Because its special defense is already fairly decent, and its physical defense is okay. So by just simply boosting the attack and speed by 50 points, you put it into position to be a mixed attacker, especially having Pixelate now too. Like, perfect scenario, and this is the way I see it. Okay, so you have Altaria on your team. Let's say it's UU, because I'm assuming it probably won't go too much higher than UU. I'll explain why later, but let's say we're in UU, right? And you're going against, let's say, a Trevenant in this case. Trevenants like to either go behind subs or open with Elite Seed. So let's assume in this case that they went behind a sub. You switched in Altaria, they got their free sub up. Now that they got their sub up, they're probably going to want to try to possibly Elite Seed you. So you just go ahead and do the Flamethrower and knock it down. Now that they Elite Seeded you, the only thing they really can do at this point is switch if they're a smart player. So even though they seeded you, they're not going to try to stay in and put another sub that you're obviously going to destroy with a single shot, right? So now that you got past this part, at the next point of the turn, you're predicting that they're going to switch, and the smart move for Trevenant to do is switch, because it's just going to keep losing health, making subs to a one-shot Flamethrower. So now that you know it's switching, even though you're seeded, you're going to go ahead and Dragon Dance. You Dragon Dance preparing for the next Pokemon to come out on you. Now, they already saw the Flamethrower, so they're probably not going to put out a Steel type on you, right? At the same time, you're Dragon, but you're not Dragon flying anymore, so they may not want to risk a Water type. So now they're at the point that they have to really decide what they can go into, and with the particular Pokemon that are in UU, you really have a decent opportunity to where when you force a switch, like say in that Trevenant's case, if you get that Dragon Dance up, to go ahead and start sweeping teams.
Yeah, mega-altaria will be a threat.
Because if you get the Dragon Dance up, and let's say they go into Arcanine, because they're like, oh, he's probably going to focus on using a fairy move, and I know he has Flamethrower, let me go into Arcanine. Arcanine hits hard enough to probably OHKO you, but it's not going to be faster than you being Mega-Altaria, so the only choice he has now is to Extreme Speed you, and Extreme Speed's not going to kill. But
then you can just drop a Draco.
Exactly, and there you go. And in a lot of cases, that will be the scenario. Especially in UU, because in UU, there's not too many steel types. I mean, the biggest steel type issue you're going to have there is Mega-Aggron, which is definitely going to be trouble, but you don't have too many other steel types that's going to be that much of a problem there. Just Mega-Aggron.
As for like the tiers, You said already UU, but I'm gonna go ahead and add OU. It's gonna be the perfect dragon killer, and most of the dragons are in OU.
But why OU though?
Because it is neutral to the dragon. It's neutral to one of its weaknesses. Like it doesn't get affected by it since it has a new fairy type.
That's right, fairy type, and it can't be. It's immune to dragon now.
Indeed. So.
I forgot about that. Okay.
So I'm thinking that it will be OU just because of that. Like you can switch it in. You can switch it in on any dragon type move that you predict, and you can because like most dragons are usually scarfed, like Scarf Salamence, Scarf Hydreigon, Scarf Haxorus, like all of those things. And they don't have any reason to stay in, so they're gonna switch. That way you can also get your Dragon Dance up and you can start going ham. Like that, it's gonna be a really good Pokemon. And I'd say team it up with a Steel type for, like, let's say if it's gonna be UU, you can team it up with Metagross. And if it's gonna be OU, you could team it up with things like Scizor and Heatran. You know why? Because the Dragon Steel Fairy Core is a really good core. It's almost as good as the Water-Fired Grass Core, and you have those in 2 Pokemon because of Altaria's mixed typing. That it's gonna be so good. You can switch in on any single move. Like Scizor is 4 times weak to fire moves. You switch your Altaria into that, and if it's not like a super powerful if it's not a super powerful fire type move, your Altaria is gonna eat it up, and you could just start like earthquaking or whatever set you're running. Like, and if like let's say they want to go for a steel type move on you or a poison type move, you can switch into that steel type because steel types are immune to poison type moves, and they're not very affected by steel type moves. So that's my main reason why it's gonna be OU, but I can see it being in a UU. As for counters and checks, not that many Pokemon do counter or check it, because it has such a powerful move pool, and with the Pixelate ability, like moves like Return are gonna be like out of this world powerful. Return and Body Slam, like we already mentioned. Then I don't know if it gets Hyper Voice, but if it does get Hyper Voice, it's amazing. It also gets a Stab Moonblast, Stab Draco, Stab Outrage, Stab Dragon Claw. The power is too real. Like, endless possibilities are going to be happening with mega-altaria, especially with the mixed Pixelate ability and with its mixed typing.
One of the other things to look at here that I just noticed is, now that you brought up OU, Altaria's base speed is faster than Scissor's.
So you can OHKO it with a Brave Bird. No, not with a Brave Bird. You can
OHKO
it with a Flamethrower, because a Bullet Punch will not take
you out. It's not gonna OHKO you.
Maybe if Choice banned it.
But at the same time, a lot of Scissors set up the sweep with like Swords Dance and stuff like that, or they like to have the utility to pursue someone that's trying to switch, because Latios is very common in OU,
and some
or even Defog Hazard. So you don't find a lot of Scarfed or Banded Scissors because of the utility of its moveset. And Life Orb Bullet Punch is not going to kill, but a single Flamethrower will. Now let's look a little bit at this scenario and possibility that it stays defensive, which a lot of people don't want, but it may happen. So, for this moveset, we would look at Cotton Guard. We will look at Heal Bell, because we no longer have Natural Cure. We will look at Toxic. And we'll look at Roost. Now let's assume in this scenario that they go 50 to your defense and 50 to your special defense. So that's going to be for physical defense, 110, 120, 130, 140 base defense, and we're looking at 155 special defense. Now, 140 base defense with Cotton Guard on, that's just making your opponent suffer. Like,
yep.
You understand how much physical defense that is.
It's amazing.
At the same time, you have the utility to roost. When people are tired of you being a complete pest, they're going to want to put a status element on you. You heal bail it off, and any other teammates that have status elements on them now have those off too. And then you just toxic them and be annoying.
Like any good ball is.
It's going to be one of the most annoying stalls there is. So if they do decide to make it go on the defensive aspect, I think it might even be like a numb down Mega Venusaur in the context of how annoying it is.
Yep.
So as far as speculations go, I think that's it. I think we've covered just about every possibility of it being a mixed attacker, a standard attacker, or even staying defensive. So there's a lot of different aspects that Altaria can possibly bring to the table, because its stats are in that situation where you can do a couple of things with it, and once again, it has an amazing move pool that allows it to utilize different stat builds. But other than that, if you guys like this video, just like, comment, subscribe. Also in the comment section, feel free to give your opinion on mega-altaria. What do you think its EV spread should look like? What do you think its base stats should look like? What do you think would be a decent move pool to run with it to make it effective in this brand new metagame? Also, check out BXL's channel. He's awesome. He does battles every now and then, but he has tons of great content when it comes to LPs, so definitely check him out. He will be in the description. And as usual, I've been RetroBro. This has been my pal BXL, and we are signing out.
Bye-bye. 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 Bye-bye.